It's time once again to talk about my personal finances. I'll openly share how my investments, debts, and income have developed during the cold winter months in Finland. You'll also get detailed information about my net worth and savings rate. Hi, I'm Janne Soikeli from the Passive Income Playbook channel. I share weekly insights on passive income, investing, and financial independence. Now it's time for my very first wealth report. I want to openly share what's been happening with my personal finances so you can learn from my experience and maybe even relate to my situation. But enough talk, let's get into it. In recent months, my assets have slightly decreased. The main reasons for this minor downturn were falling stock prices and the sale of some holdings. As of March 14th, 2025, I have about 160 euros in stocks, meaning their value dropped by 202 euros over the course of a few months. My mutual funds, which are held in pension insurance accounts, are currently worth around 10,900 euros, a decrease of 1,280 euros. Altogether, I now have 11,058 euros in stocks and mutual funds, which means my portfolio shrank by 1,481 euros during the winter months. I sold off some underperforming stocks to offset capital gains from profitable cryptocurrency sales. I also let go of my small holdings in EcoUp and Remedy. I still don't consider these companies to be bad investments, so at some point I may repurchase their shares once I've reduced my debt load. In cryptocurrencies, I currently have 570 euros, meaning their value dropped by 370 euros over the past 2 months. The main reason for the decrease in my crypto holdings was the sale of my Aave position. I earned 230 euros from selling Aave when its price peaked at around 344 euros. Aside from that, the value of my crypto assets declined in line with the broader negative trend in the crypto market. This appears to be a kind of correction following last year's strong rally. By far, my largest asset remains my owner-occupied home in Hämeenlinna. The value of this detached house is approximately 110,000 euros, and it hasn't changed in recent months. At this point, I don't anticipate any major changes in the value of this property in either direction. A small but quite useful part of my assets is my car, a Seat Leon. This ride has already clocked over 500,000 kilometers, and its current value is around 1,500 euros, a decrease of about 100 euros over the past few months. Even going forward, its depreciation will likely remain very modest compared to many other cars. My total assets currently amount to 123,128 euros, which means they have decreased by 1951 euros over the past few months. The main reason for this decline was the poor performance of my emerging markets funds, but the sale of some of my holdings also contributed to this downward trend. My debts also haven't decreased at any impressive pace. The main reasons for this slow progress were particularly high electricity bills and increased business expenses. Like many other Finns, my biggest debt by far is my mortgage. I currently have 71,899 euros left to repay, meaning I managed to pay down 374 euros over the past 2 months. At the end of last month, the reference rate on my mortgage changed, so from now on, I'll be able to pay it down at a faster pace than before. At this point, I have 28,192 euros in bad debt, meaning various consolidation loans, installment plans, and credit card debt, which is 925 euros less than a few months ago. The largest remaining consolidation loan stands at 5,800 euros. I have 12,152 euros in credit card debt and 11,040 euros left to pay on renovation loans. In total, I have 100,891 euros in debt, which means my debt has decreased by 1,299 euros over the past few months. With spring arriving, I'm happy to say that the pace of debt repayment will pick up significantly thanks to lower expenses and increasing income compared to the current situation. Net worth is a simple yet effective key figure for personal finances. It is calculated by subtracting all debts from total assets. In my case, my net worth is currently 22,237 euros, which has decreased by 652 euros over the past few months. In the longer term, I expect my net worth to grow significantly due to lower expenses and debts, as well as increasing income. Once again, the majority of my income came from my job as a security guard. I earned a net salary of €4,125 over the past 2 months. On the other hand, I earned €148 from YouTube ad revenue, €306 from the sale of investments, and a whopping €0.60 in dividends. Additionally, through my company, Investunt, I received €425 in income from things like commercial partnerships and content production. My total income for the past couple of months was €5,705 net, and I'm quite happy with this result. In particular, the income from my business has been growing in a positive direction recently. For the first time, I'm also sharing my expenses in my wealth update, as they obviously play a huge role in the sustainability of personal finances. Additionally, I've been a FIRE, financial independence, retire early, enthusiast for years, and effective expense management significantly impacts how quickly financial independence can be achieved. My largest expense category is various debts, from the mortgage to bad debts. I spent a total of €370 on these in the past 2 months. On housing-related expenses, from electricity to insurance, I spent €974, and transportation costs, including fuel and maintenance, amounted to €410. A significant expense was also alimony payments, which totaled €1,076. For telecommunications and entertainment services, from broadband to audiobook subscriptions, I spent €344, and my grocery expenses were €206. Meanwhile, my sole proprietorship, Investunti, incurred €782 in expenses over the past 2 months. These were normal, as annual application fees are always due early in the year. Altogether, my expenses amounted to €69.62, which is significantly higher than at other times of the year. In particular, large electricity bills and the concentration of business expenses in the early part of the year contributed to the high spending. My largest expense at the moment is the debt, but my situation will improve when I pay off the consolidation loan in the fall. At that point, my monthly expenses will decrease by €480. The savings rate is an important metric that allows you to develop your personal finances in a straightforward and effective way. In recent months, my income has been €1,257 less than my expenses, so my savings rate was 0%. On the other hand, I could have saved if I had wanted to, but at this point, I want to focus on aggressively reducing my debt burden. My long-term savings rate target is 50%, which would make it much easier to achieve financial independence. Rapid debt repayment and increasing my income are the ways I plan to practically implement this increase in my savings rate. All in all, the beginning of the year has been quite chilly in terms of my financial situation. My investments performed poorly, and expenses were significantly higher than my income. However, the positive side was the reduction in debt and the expectation of expenses decreasing later in the spring. So my financial situation is still far from perfect, but it is gradually moving in a better direction. What thoughts did this video about my personal finances stir in you? Leave a comment and hit like. And if you want to learn more about passive income, investing, and FIRE, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching this episode. And next week, there'll be something new and interesting from here in Hämeenlinna. That's all for now. Take care.